All right, so we're going to talk about the history of video game consoles. But forget about sales figures for a minute. What we're really diving into here are the marketing battles, the ideas, and the slogans that have been fighting for a spot in your living room for like 40 years now.
So that's the big question, right? How do you actually win a war that's fought in the living room? I mean, we're not talking about soldiers and tanks here. This is a battle for your attention, for your loyalty, and really for what you think of as fun.
You know, for decades now, these companies have been waging this war using commercials, magazine ads, unforgettable taglines, all of it designed to grab our imagination and convince us that their box is the one, the only one, you need hooked up to your TV.
Okay, let's kick things off by rewinding the clock, all the way back to the beginning. Back to a time when one company didn't just join the market, they basically invented it.
Yeah, way before anybody was talking about specs or processors, Atari's home message was just pure emotion. They weren't selling you a piece of technology. Nope, they were selling an experience. The whole idea was to make gaming feel like this addictive, can't-put-it-down kind of joy.
And this quote, this just nails their genius, doesn't it? Their ads didn't frame gaming as some nerdy hobby. Instead, it was this hilarious, family-wide problem, something everyone could get hooked on. It was the kind of problem you wanted to have.
So Atari's strategy was actually pretty simple, but man, was it powerful. They just wanted to overwhelm you with choice and intensity. It wasn't just a game system, it was a whole library of experiences. They were positioning themselves as the ultimate never-ending fun machine.
But of course, every empire has its challengers, right? And instead of trying to beat Atari at its own game of more fun, more games, Mattel's Intellivision showed up with a totally different game plan.
And here, you can really see that first big clash of ideas. You had Atari basically shouting from the rooftops about quantity, more games, more fun, while Intellivision took a different approach. They were kind of whispering about quality. They were promising something more sophisticated, more realistic, more of a challenge.
See, Intellivision wasn't just selling games. They were selling superiority. The message was crystal clear. Atari? That's for simple fun. But if you wanted an intelligent challenge, well, you bought an Intellivision.
Then, the great video game crash happened. The whole battlefield was basically reset, and out of the ashes, a new titan emerged from Japan. One that would not only rebuild the entire industry, but dominate for a generation, all by hammering home one single, incredibly consistent idea.
This was it. 4 simple words. One of the most iconic slogans of all time. With this, Nintendo just completely changed the conversation. It wasn't about fun anymore, it wasn't about intelligence, it was about this feeling of control, of being capable. It was about power.
And then the Super Nintendo came along. And their strategy? It was just brilliant. So simple. They didn't have to reinvent the wheel. They just added a word. Super. It's the same exact promise of power, just cranked up to 11, with 16-bit graphics and sound.
And they did it again with the Game Boy. It was just proof of how strong that core idea was. They took that feeling of power and made it mobile. They put it right into your hands. And it was this relentless consistency that built a brand that was just unstoppable.
And this was Nintendo's secret weapon, their ace in the hole. The power they were talking about, it wasn't just the hardware. It was Mario, it was Zelda, it was Metroid. It was this entire universe of exclusive games you just couldn't get anywhere else. Nintendo basically became video games.
But you know how it goes. No dynasty lasts forever. And the next challenger to step into the ring didn't just bring new games. Oh no. They came with a massive technological leap that was about to change the entire language of the console war.
So Sony's PlayStation, it started speaking a totally new language. It wasn't about a feeling like power anymore. This was about numbers, about quantifiable superiority. A 32-bit processor. What that really meant was, for the first time ever, you could get these amazing, complex 3D graphics and CD-quality sound at home. This was a message aimed squarely at a more tech-savvy and definitely older crowd.
Then you get numbers like this, 500 MIPS. That's million instructions per second. Now, did anyone really know what that meant? Probably not. But it didn't matter one bit. It was a huge, impressive-sounding number that did one thing perfectly. It made the 16-bit competition look like dinosaurs, like overnight.
And this was such a huge turning point. While Nintendo was still all about the family, PlayStation was actively going after an older crowd.
They had these cinematic, complex, and yeah, mature games like Metal Gear Solid. They were basically telling a whole generation of gamers, hey, it's cool to grow up, and we're growing up right there with you. So by the time the PS2 came out, the message had evolved again. It wasn't just about the tech anymore, not at all. PlayStation had become the destination, the essential must-have console. The message was loud and clear. If you were serious about gaming, this was the one and only place to be.
Which brings us pretty much up to the modern day. And now, well, the war isn't just fought over who has the most power or the best graphics. The battlefield has gotten way more complex, a lot more fragmented, and a lot more personal.
Yeah, the messaging kind of splintered. You had Nintendo starting to focus on connecting people around the world, and PlayStation, they did something really interesting. They turned the camera around. They stopped talking about the box, and they started talking about you, the player. You are the game changer. You're the one who leaps into battle. It became all about your identity as a gamer.
And eventually, PlayStation's whole message got boiled down to this. This is for the players. It's so simple, but so powerful. It's a declaration of loyalty. After all those years building a massive community, the brand's biggest selling point was the community itself. It was basically them saying, we get you, we're on your side.
So when you look back, this whole 40-year war, it was never really about the plastic boxes, was it? It was a battle of ideas. It went from the simple promise of fun to intelligence, to power, and finally to community. The weapons change, the slogans change, but that war for our living rooms, it's still raging on. That battle to define what it means to play, that never really ends, does it?